Restaurants are oftentimes completely competent and very forgettable. Today on the Restaurant Within, I want to discuss things that might challenge industrial norms for the restaurant business. And I'd like to start conversations, if at all possible, about things we could do that would make a guest say, wow, I think it's probably one of the biggest challenges we have in the industry of how not to just be the same old. But oftentimes I don't feel like many restaurant companies either do or are capable of stepping up to that type of expectation. What would we build if we stopped accepting casual dining standards as being the standard? What could we create that was noticeably better than what a guest expects that would make them actually want to go tell somebody about their experience? Those are things I want to talk about today on the Restaurant Within. My name is Neal Hollingshead. This is Restaurant Within. We are talking about everything that happens inside the four walls of a restaurant. And we're also in the process of trying to build one of the biggest free educational libraries about the restaurant business on YouTube. So we'll keep working towards that goal. It should be fun. I definitely have a lot more to say, and I'm looking forward to a lot more feedback. I've gotten thousands of comments back from people who definitely have an interest. I think that people all over the industry could probably use this source of information. I could use as many people as I can get that are interested in being on the show that really enjoy the business on all levels. If you're a server or a cook or hostess or bartender or somebody and you want to be on the show and participate, just let me know because I'll send you a link and you can join from where you are. As long as you got a camera and a way to get the audio to me, we'll make it happen. I want to start talking about what it means to make somebody say, wow. And there's two different perspectives that we have to look at. And one is what's reasonable for the amount of money that it costs to eat in casual dining. And then I like to explore the thought of what if money wasn't an issue? What if we had a blank slate to do anything that we wanted to do? What would we do differently? And it starts when a guest pulls into the parking lot. I've been super lucky to have some really good landscapers, but the parking lot be in good order, making sure there's not trash all over the place, preferably with noticeable parking lines. It doesn't look all worn out. Oftentimes thought it would be kind of cool to put something in the parking places to welcome people as they pull into each one of those parking places. But I know that's probably one of those things that you would have to consider if you weren't considering money, because that would be expensive to do. But when people get out of their car, do they hear what's going on inside the restaurant? Do they hear music? Do they hear sports? Do they hear whatever your restaurant is doing? Is it automatically intriguing? Is it automatically make people want to come in and see what's going on? When they are approaching the restaurant, if somebody's holding the door open or if somebody sees them coming and steps up to hold the door open, even that can be seen as a little bit of a luxury. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a wow factor, but I think the challenge becomes you have to be able to do enough things in the course of a meal that you increase your chances of creating a wow factor. So holding a door open might not do it. Maybe it's the next step. Maybe they get into the lobby and the fact that the lobby is spotless. And I mean the corners of the lobby, the glass in the lobby. Is it all spotless and kick plates look good, thresholds clean. So it looks nice and approachable from somebody who's not used to that facility. What is the body language of the people that they see first? That moment of truth when they see the very first employee. Is that a super well-kept, clean, nice-looking uniform? Smile on their face? Not necessarily a goofy grin like it's fake, because that can be worse hospitality than not having a smile, but a pleasant presentation, a pleasant demeanor about them. Do they make you feel disarmed, like they are looking forward to helping you get where you got to go? That is probably where we get hurt the worst in the industry right now, is that we don't necessarily have all the pieces that we need in place to make the connections that we want to make. So when it comes to a guest coming in the lobby, even I've seen restaurants before get their name right there every time. What's your name? Oh, we're the Joneses. Okay. Well, Mr. Miss Jones, we can put that on a piece of paper and put it right there on the table. So whenever they come in, everybody knows their name, the managers, the servers. That would definitely be a huge wow factor. I've known one or two restaurants that did that in my lifetime, and it was constantly something that got talked about as far as the reputation of that restaurant goes. When they come in the door, there's somebody pleasant, inviting, that preferably is standing there with some menus, knowing off the top of their head exactly where to go, so you don't process a customer. And what I mean when I say processing a guest is that they come 5 steps in the door and the greeter greets them. The greeter spends whatever amount of time figuring out where to go and what table's next and what server's next in rotation. And then they direct them right behind them to a seater that then is going to stop and gather up all the menus and get them ready to go and then start walking back to a table, oftentimes leaving the guest behind. 90% of the time or better, there is not enough credit given to that trip from the lobby to the table. If nothing else, ask them if it's the first time coming in the restaurant. If you're uncomfortable with that, because that can be embarrassing if it's somebody that's been in there every day since you opened and you just never saw them before, that can be a little bit insulting, but just ask them how they're doing. Come on back. I'll get you a spot, sit down. I know you'll enjoy your lunch, and get them to a table. But that little bit of finesse, that little bit of character, that little bit of conversation is missing a huge percentage of the time. When they get back to the table, it should be spotless. Any kind of table setups that you have, salt and pepper shakers, ketchup bottles, menus, anything left on that table has got to be in perfect order. There can't be crumbs in the booths, trash on the floor under the table. It needs to be perfect. When the server arrives, hopefully, again, good body language. They know what they're doing. They know the menu well enough to make recommendations. They are smart enough to be efficient. A good alcoholic drink, non-alcoholic drink, appetizer, entree, making brief suggestions and why. Is that the best item in the building? Is it the cheapest item in the building? Is it something that I'll enjoy? Is it something that all the rest of your guests enjoy? Is it your personal favorite? But tell them why you're making that recommendation, because a genuinely good recommendation is something that I don't hear as much of as I used to either. But making somebody say, wow, is going to be a challenge if you really enjoy the art of hospitality and you're in this business. The mission is about exactly that. How do you make people say, wow? It's not an easy thing to do. And I would challenge anybody that says they know what they're doing in this business that doesn't know how to do that. I would challenge why anybody's in this business that doesn't ask the question, how do you do that? That doesn't come to work with your head on a swivel trying to borrow or steal ideas to try to use for yourself to make that happen. Because every day you should be getting a little bit better. And I know that's just a marching order from me. If you work in a building with 20, 30, 40, 50 other people, there's no reason why you can't pick up some ideas from them, from the leadership, from the management team. But the issue is, and the reason that I'm having this podcast about this topic today, and I wish it would go around the world, because you're not going to get a wow factor from employees that have been trained to just survive. No matter how many training courses I look at right now, there are very few, if any, trained behaviors that lead to wow factors. Even if you train a few of them, they're going to rarely ever happen unless you follow up with them and make them part of your program, but I don't see it. The closer that you get to restaurants that are good at that, there are a couple of restaurants that are closer than others. And oftentimes the consistency is what does it for people. Just knowing what I'm going to anticipate and being able to do it every single time that you come to the restaurant. That's a big, big factor. A couple of the restaurants that I know of that have great reputations for that are not perfect, but they reliably have friendly people working for them. They just do not tolerate anybody that doesn't want to be friendly. And I would agree with that. I don't know why you would let somebody stay in the business that doesn't want to be friendly. And I don't mean friendly when everything's going perfectly. I mean somebody that enjoys overcoming the challenges that are existing in restaurants to make somebody say, wow, that was awesome. Because the way that I envision this is that somebody's having the worst day of their life and they came to sit down in my restaurant. They passed by dozens of others to come eat with me. How do I ensure that over the next 30 to 40 minutes, an hour, however long they're with me, everything that they encounter is perfectly predictable so that when they leave there, and I've had this said several times in my career and I really can't get past it, but somebody that comes into the restaurant and says, I was having a horrible day before I came here and you all were just amazing. And I just want to tell you, I appreciate it. I've had that happen several times and it rings a bell. The thing that food and hospitality will do for you is unbelievable. So how do we get there? Because if we're not training the details of how to behave, then you end up with where we are today. You have probably 90% or better mediocrity out there in casual dining. You pull up in the lot may or may not be clean. There may or may not be a hostess in place. Servers and managers walking through the dining room may or may not even pay you any attention at the lobby when you come in there. When you get to a table, you may or may not get the service that you're expecting or the food that you want. You may or may not, and most time not, get out of there in the time that you would like to get out of there. I know everybody in this business has seen before when you make somebody mad in the lobby and they've had to wait for 10 minutes to even see a hostess. That presents a whole nother set of challenges to that server because now the mindset is bad. On the other hand, if you flip the script from that and the minute they come in the door, they're greeted with a smile and taken to a table and note they haven't had to stop 3 times along the way, we're just straight back and down. Now, all of a sudden, they're loosened up just a little bit. And I would train the front door not just to seat tables, but to disarm people. A great front door can absolutely set a server up for success. A fast greeting, a good greeting, a pleasant greeting, even making recommendations on the way back from the lobby to the table. They could know what the soup of the day is today, or they could know what your favorite salad is, or your favorite entree, or whatever you want to make a highlight. But a huge percentage of the host jobs don't use that time from the lobby to the table. And there's a lot to be sold in that time frame. But when somebody pulls in outside, making sure that everything is as detailed as it can be, no cigarette butts in the landscaping, details there. We've got a couple of landscapers who work with us right now that they just leave the lots immaculate. And that helps so much to make us look a whole nother level. And it's very much appreciated. But I guess in every industry, there's an art, and some people are better at that art than others. If somebody's kind of sticking their head out in the lot to make sure the lot looks good through the shift, what would it be like from the car to the front door if you were being greeted by somebody out there? What would it be like if you knew that people were going out of their way to make you comfortable? Critical in this industry. You cannot stay in this business with an eye for an eye mentality. What I mean by that is you want to be a pro at treating people with the utmost hospitality. You want to make people feel special. You want to be great at that. You want to be a professional at that. I'm not going to say regardless of how a guest acts, because I do believe that you get what you deserve sometimes when you don't know how to act. But I am saying that you need to know exactly where the line is drawn. A difficult guest is not a reason to fail. Somebody who's having a bad day as a guest is not a reason to fail. Somebody that had a bad stop in the lobby that's bitter whenever you get to the table is not a reason to fail. Those are things we should overcome. The things that I don't even attempt to overcome is a guest that's being disrespectful to one of our managers or our teammates. I do understand that we are capable of making people very mad. I think we have to do the right thing and apologize and be prepared to fix that. When I say fix that, a lot of people don't even know how to do that right. But what are you doing when somebody has an issue? And none of us are perfect. You're going to have occasionally the order of fries or a burger or something that guests didn't like. How do you fix it? Because it's gotten to a place where it's even a challenge to get the manager to the table at all. Last 3 times I've had any kind of issue in a restaurant, I never saw a manager. When you go to the table and you realize they've had an issue, and it needs to be done quickly, get that plate off the table, get them whatever they wanted, and offer them a little dessert or something at the end of the meal. Do a little extra for them, because that process can win you more people than probably anything else that you can do. If you go to a table that's having an issue and they have a quick, pleasant, accurate, replace +1 kind of thing, then they're going to be surprised. I had a grown man come up and hug me after a meal one time because I fixed something for him. I mean, that's just the way it makes people feel, because it has become an issue that oftentimes when you have something go wrong at a table, you either get no response or a poor response. And so having a great response to that is a lot like having a great response to employee issues. It's productive and it's helpful. It changes the environment completely. But you also need to make sure employees don't park around the front door. There's nothing more frustrating than trying to walk all the way across the parking lot only to see an employee go right out the door and get the first parking lot. There should be a rule that there will be no guests standing in the lobby, looking across the dining room, waiting to be greeted at the podium. If that door opens, somebody gets there. That's a major part of that lobby, because standing there waiting is definitely a way to turn somebody's attitude the wrong way. I could not tell you the number of times I am in the lobby and somebody comes in the door and I say, "Hey, how are y'all doing today?" And they say 3. Is that 3 out of 10 or 3 out of, no, they want a table for 3 people. They don't pay you a lick of attention. I don't think that's as big an issue as probably I make it out to be. It's just frustrating. I wish people would pay better attention than that. A lot of the guests do appreciate when they walk in the door and you say, "Hey, how you doing today? Welcome into wherever you're at." let me get y'all a table. But most people are very appreciative that somebody would greet them in that fashion. But that server being friendly and knowledgeable and knowing what to do, being able to make good recommendations, reading the table, keeping their head on a swivel, being a good communicator, anticipating needs, because you're not going to ever wow somebody by reacting to everything they ask for. You'll survive and you'll make money at it. The art of hospitality is going to call for you to anticipate needs. The number of times that I've seen servers go to a table and ask if a guest wants a refill when they may have only been sitting at the table for 5 minutes and they're sitting there in drenched down clothes because they've been outside working all day. You don't need to ask them if they need a refill. If my food just came out and my glass is nearly empty, come on. You're on a 98% rate of needs for refills in that situation. So why would you ask somebody that? If their plates just got there, and if they have less than a half a glass of whatever they're drinking, especially if it's free refills, I'm going after it. If it's a beer or something that's alcohol, I'm going to ask if they want a refill immediately because their food just got there. I know they're going to be drinking more. If it looks like they've been outside working or working out at the gym or something and they're dehydrated, you know they're going to want more to drink, especially if they ordered something spicy to eat. And you know that when the food was dropped off, they have very little in the glass. If you're keeping your head on a swivel, that's not even a question. They need something to drink. Matter of fact, if I get somebody that has above average spicy food, I'll be honest, a lot of times I'll bring them a drink and a refill because I already know it's coming. And they appreciate it almost every time. When you greet a table as a server, that initial statement that you make, the eye contact, how you look from hair to organization to that apron, pants, shirt, everything, that makes a statement that oftentimes is followed by kind of a value assessment of maybe what type of gratuity a person might even be interested in leaving. If you go to that table and you're completely disheveled and your apron's nasty, it just gets harder to get a tip. And I know we all want to believe that, well, I got them their food, I got them their drink, I deserve a tip. Well, you know, times have changed. And I guess that's one of the reasons I'm having this video, because times have changed in a way to where that may be true today, but it wasn't always true. You had to earn tips for a long, long time before it got to where we are today. I would just like to see us get back to a place where all training manuals and all people in this industry are guided back towards this wow factor. It'd make a huge difference. There's not a store out there. There's not a concept out there that if you didn't take this list of things and do what you could with it to make it rules in your restaurant, that you wouldn't grow sales. I don't know of one restaurant that wouldn't be able to do that. But that's not the focus. And the focus can be on the systems that you have in place now. Probably have a training manual in place now. You're probably looking for all those standards. You probably go through the day and jump through all the hurdles with all the plumbers and electricians and different things you need to keep the place going the way it is, and the hurdles with staffing. Every restaurant that I hear right now is struggling with staffing. You have a tendency to kind of let this go. Can we cover this gap back to wow? Because to do it, first thing you have to do is be willing to be strong enough mentally to be able to grade yourself completely on wow visits. To do that, the first thing you got to be willing to do is to say, hey, I got a 0 today. That's not designed to make you feel like you got a 0. Maybe you got 100 on following the system. Maybe you got 100 on no complaints. You can take all these data points into consideration, whatever you have to do to feel good mentally. But the honest and most helpful battle out there is, what do I need to do to create a wow factor? And what am I willing to do to learn that? Do I watch videos on YouTube, or do I read a book, or how do I learn to do these things? Because they're just not taught very well. I was taught when I came into the restaurant business. One thing you have to do as a server is to find something in common with every table. Find something. That was the connection. But I don't hear that anymore. I feel like casual dining is a machine right now that's a distance from a wow factor. What I see predominantly is survival mentalities. I see us going to work, making sure we don't drop the ball, we don't get complaints, we celebrate, go home, get ready to do it again. I guess because I've been plowing at it for so long, and I'm no different than you all, I've probably missed more than I've hit. But the journey towards learning how to do that has been spectacular. I guess I just wish that more people would kind of join in that journey, because it would make the industry so much better. If we were on that wavelength as a management team, it would clean up the people that are able to survive in this industry. It's unfortunate the number of people that I'll get. Sometimes they'll put in an application and say, I've been in this business for 10, 15, 20 years. When you bring them to work for you, they've learned to be lazy. They've learned to take shortcuts. They've learned to do, and oftentimes, matter of fact, I'm trying to think back if there's an exception to it, but I don't remember any of them ever being really conditioned that well to make people say, wow. That's tough, because the personalization from the lobby to the table, even the standards for the food coming out, it's not awful. I get what I pay for at most restaurants, and I think that that's the grade and stick for most restaurants. But what happened if the food you sat in front of me still had steam coming off of it? How many times can you say that's really happened in the last month for you? Because for me, it's at like 0. What would it be like if you could get that done? One of the best shifts for that I've ever had in my lifetime, it was because the heat lamps were broken in the kitchen. So when we did line up to start the shift, I told everybody, the heat lamps aren't working. If this food sits here more than 30 seconds, it's going to get cold. And so that whole shift, they were snatching plates out as fast as they would come up and getting them to the table, and steaming food was hitting the tables all night long. One of the most impressive food shifts I've ever ran in my life. And it immediately rang a bell, because now I'm like, okay, so part of our issue is our dependence upon these heat lamps. People think that there's something happening with those heat lamps that's not happening. It may not cool off as fast under that heat lamp, but it also isn't staying as hot as it was under that heat lamp either. I've had times in my career where I almost thought heat lamps were the wrong way to go. But I know if I didn't have them, I'd probably get burnt with food that didn't get out fast enough and did get cold. Just because you have a heat lamp don't mean the food can sit there. Maybe get to the place where you've got a allotted amount of time and a system of such that food's got to go in the window steaming and it needs to hit the table steaming. That would be a wow factor for a huge percentage of people. The other thing, when you bring the food out to the table, it's crazy how many servers right now don't know where the food goes. That was something that 30 years ago we were a lot better at. When you brought the food out, you had a pivot point, you had seat numbers. And I see that in training manuals often. I just don't see it executed. So people go and auction off the food, and that should be a rule. No auctioning off food. But in order to stop that, again, it's got to be addressed. You've got to have a service manager that has this vision for how you want to do the things you want to do, and preferably have a system in a training manual that's good at getting that done. That is going to set the stage for what the managers are asking from the team. I understand, because managers, sometimes they put in a ton of hours, and sometimes they have more on their plate than they want to have on their plate. This business just pushes you back into survival mode a lot, and I understand it. I really do. But at the same time, I have to say, being in survival mode is not going to ever take you to the funnest way to be in this business. The funnest way is when people recognize you coming into a restaurant, and when they know that they're going to have a great experience because you were there. I try to say hospitality is for our guests, but I guess it's really for me, because I like to know that I operated on a level that somebody else might not could have done. I'm never convinced that I really get that done. I'm convinced that if I keep trying, I'll get there one day. It's been a fun journey, and I'm having a blast still learning to this day. I work with as good of people right now as I've ever worked with in my whole lifetime. I still find myself learning stuff every week. Just adopt that mentality. Just making sure that the managers do their part. I probably only have a couple of managers that are really good at getting to know people in the dining room. If the manager's not creating connections out there, if the managers don't create wow factors out there, where's the team supposed to learn how to do this from? I'm going to say more than 95% of the time right now, there is no intent to create that wow factor from the managers or from the people that work inside that building. It's all about survival. When somebody orders something to drink, let's say there's stuff going on and you got a guest that's going to stay there for a while. At some point, once they've got their beverages and stuff, they are going to need to go to the restroom. When they go to the restroom, what are they going to see then? Clean when it comes to a bathroom is not all that impressive. It's nice, and it certainly won't get you any complaints, but immaculate is a wow factor. If you've got everything clean, detailed, all the stainless steel, all the walls have no smudges, fingerprints, and all that kind of stuff, and it is truly immaculate, that is a wow factor. And more in the ladies' room than the men's room, it is very important to make sure that when they walk in there, that is a chance to make somebody say, wow. I would treat the restrooms as if it were as part of the experience as anything else in the restaurant. A trip to the bathroom is as valuable as the meals that come out. I just don't see them handled that way right now. Making sure that restrooms have a nice smell to them all the time is another really major thing for me. It's just too easy to adopt a number of different processes. They make units that go on the wall that will keep air fresheners circulated. You can keep air fresheners in there. You can use potpourri, or there's a lot of different ways to do it. But walking into a nasty smelling bathroom that just should not be an option, especially if you're in casual dining. I mean, you're looking for ways to make people say, wow, and we all know that's one of them. The other thing is making sure that the payment process is as fast and painless as possible. The number of times I see somebody sitting there, especially at lunch, it's just unfortunate. I don't see a lot of people that understand the percentage of time. And understand this, nothing's perfect in this business. There's nothing that you can do every single time that's going to work every single time. So you have to go with the numbers. At lunchtime, Monday through Friday, a huge percentage of guests in most casual dining restaurants have to go. They're working on a time limit and they have to go. Training all the things to make that happen at lunchtime, you have to be super efficient. You might want to drop by the table and do one-stop shopping on drinks, appetizers, entrees, everything, and get it all in the computer and come back with a check and say, hey, I ain't in a hurry. You know, y'all take your time, but if you have to get back to work, I want to be ready for you. I just don't see service right now addressing the speed needs for what it is that we're doing. It really has kind of opened the door to the counter service type restaurants, because a lot of people go there because it's so much faster. And it's faster. Why? Because they're not dealing with servers. That's the only thing different about counter service restaurants versus casual dining. We've got to get better at anticipating needs and making these visits worth the money that people spend coming into these restaurants. And we've got to do a better job of taking excuses away. I think you need to stay at home if you're not ready to really blow people's socks off with what you're doing today. At the end of the day, we need to pick out the people that are strong enough to say, you know what, I got a 0 today. Nah, I had an okay day, but I got a 0 because I didn't have one guest say wow about anything that I did. And if you don't have a guest say wow about anything that you did, it's not the end of the world. I've had plenty of visits where people didn't say wow about anything that we did, but what could you have done? When did we start rehearsing doing those things so that it becomes more the norm? The wow factor is not doing your job correctly. A wow factor is the distance between what a guest expects and what they can't believe that you did. That's a wow factor. If money were not a problem and industry tradition wasn't allowed as an excuse, what would we change? A lot of the things that we talked about today are things that I would change. Can you honestly look at the things that you do in the restaurant business, and are you tough enough to say my grade is what percentage of people that I make say wow? I think it takes a lot to be able to do that. But I think if you'll step up to that challenge, when you do adopt all of the little things that you can do to make people say wow, especially if you're a server, you're going to make a lot more money just because of the things that you know. What frustrating moments do you know of at this point that are tolerated in the restaurant industry that operators no longer even notice? I could come up with 10 quickly. Which ideas that don't cost anything but do require discipline are we missing now? A lot of the things that I'm talking about are just training, habits, intentions, focus, and that type of thing to try to create a wow factor. But wow starts where good ends. I guess the old saying was, good is the enemy of great. Once somebody gets good, they rarely ever push far enough ahead to get to great. When a guest starts from the time they get into the front door to the time they leave, if they have to ask for something, we already missed the boat. Our job has got to be anticipation. A refill isn't necessarily impressive, but anticipating somebody's refill can be very impressive. Knowing somebody's name, I think that would make a difference on a dining experience. I think that's probably a big piece that we miss these days. Remembering somebody's name when they come back is always a wow factor, and I almost never see it done. I mean, I'll see it occasionally. Honestly, I see it more probably from bartenders right now than I do from servers. I've worked with a couple of servers in my lifetime that were fantastic at having requests in the lobby, and whenever they realize they're getting this same table again, they do all the things they have to do to make sure that their teas or sodas or beer or whatever it is they drink are sitting at the table as they're sitting down. Those are wow factors. As the old saying was on Cheers, you want to go where everybody knows your name. There's a lot of truth in that too, but we just need to build a better system for getting that name out there and using that name. Right now, I just don't see any intent to even get that name. The wow factor doesn't require expensive. It requires intention. If you're intentionally going for that goal, you have to pick up little things along the way. That's a big part of the restaurant business to me, is what can you pick up along the way that will help you do what you're trying to do. I run into a bunch of people that have better ideas than I do. That's what allows me to see as much as I do and absorb as much as I do. And even at that, I'm not perfect at it. I'm still learning too. It's just a fun path. Like I said in the beginning, a restaurant can be perfectly functional and completely forgettable. If every restaurant is doing it, whatever it is that you're doing, it's probably not a wow factor. You don't need 50 wow factors in a restaurant. You need a small handful of wow factors that you can do every time. If only your best employees can create that wow factor, that's not a system and you can't duplicate it. Matter of fact, could make you worse, because a guest will come in when things are at their best with that star employee and come back at a time where it's anybody else and their expectations change. You have to be careful about letting that wow factor employee begin to create the standards, because putting together 20, 30, 40, or 50 wow factor servers is definitely the challenge of a lifetime. As much as I hear everybody in the industry want that, they want superstars in the kitchen, they want superstars in the dining room behind the bar, you'll find almost nothing out there to help you with the selection process of how do I know at the interview process that I've got one of those people. I know so many people that think they can sit down with an applicant and understand perfectly what it is they're all about just by sitting at that table. That's probably the biggest lie I see in the hiring game. The way you're going to know what that person will do for you is by calling a reference. If they were a wow factor at their last reference based on their manager's evaluations, they'll probably be a wow factor for you. If they were long-term at the last place, they'll probably be long-term for you. If they were a pain in the butt at the last place, they're going to be a pain in the butt for you too. I don't care if they sit down at the table and wow you, you're going to have your challenges. And then the dining experience doesn't end when they pay the bill. And so many people make that mistake. I don't know. It's probably 30 or 40% of the time right now when they get ready to pay the bill, they got stacked up dirty dishes on their table trying to find a place to sign a credit card slip or to fill out an iPad or whatever it is you've got for a payment system. There's just no way that you're going to reach a wow factor like that. I always thought about it like this. If they're filling out their credit card information, that's when my tip's coming in. That's when I need to make sure everything that I could affect on this table is as good as it could be, because that was going to maximize my tip. I don't understand what servers are thinking whenever a guest has to move a stack of plates to sign a credit card slip. What do you think they're leaving for a tip? Do you think people just don't notice that was the server's job? You got a lot of guests out there nowadays that make excuses for the server. Well, they were busy. Oh, they did the best they could, or this was a nice person, and all that's fantastic. But if they stack those dishes up, man, they are trying to send a signal to you. And I had a lot of people, last time I said that on a video, I had a lot of people weigh in and say, I just do it to be nice to the server. Okay, well, we appreciate you being nice to the server, but they should be nice to you too. If a server's waiting on 5 tables and they're stretched so thin that they can't get that done, then 100% of the time, that server needs to be on 4 tables. And if they're on 4 tables and can't get that done, 100% of the time, you need to put that server on 3 tables. I mean, there's a breaking point for this, and it needs to be found. Because the minute those standards start to drop, you're getting in trouble, not just for the employee, not just for the reputation of the restaurant, but that guest visit is what you're going to pay for that. And this whole thing, wandering shift to shift, taking things as they are and not having a good alignment on what the priority is. Is it quality or quantity? Everybody's reaching for that quantity. It's a twisted part of the fate of these restaurants, but it's the quality piece that's going to earn you the quantity piece. And so I just hope this video will find a landing place and hopefully make a difference. I appreciate anybody that's listened to it to this point. Looking forward to do the next episode. We appreciate it. Feel free to email me or anything like that if you have questions or comments. I certainly appreciate all the comments that I get on all these videos. And some people agree with me, some people don't. But at the end of the day, the reason that I wanted to do all of these to begin with was to create somewhat of a foundation of conversations for these things. My ideas are 100% from my experiences. I don't make them perfect. It just makes them my experiences. And if you've had different experiences that you can share with me, I'd love to hear them. That's all for this episode, and we look forward to having y'all next time. Thank you.